Good morning and welcome to Visionary Aging. I'm Mary Winters, a gerontologist, the owner of About Senior Solutions. And we put this program together because honestly, we want to roll that boulder off your shoulder. I see our families that we meet with who are completely overwhelmed with um, trying to support their loved one or for themselves. They just don't know where to go for resources and so forth. So we're here with this program to support you with all kinds of resources. We have a great program. We had a wonderful guest who's going to come today, and she had to slip out with an emergency, and she'll be on with us another time. So we're going to take our caregiver question and expand that into a full show. So let me go ahead and I'm going to bring in our very own Steve McCullough. He can ask the question and then later on we'll discuss it in more detail. So let me go ahead and bring Steve in. Morning,
Good
Steve.
morning, Mary.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, so I know the question today because our guest wasn't showing up. So share the question, and I think we'll talk about it in a little more detail
Sure.
as your topic.
Sure. The question comes from one of our viewers. He says that he is seeing some memory loss in his wife. Mm-hmm. She's only 67. She had a test by her regular doctor recently, and he scored her an 18, and he's not really sure what that means and if he should be concerned.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The person is quite young, presumably with memory loss, and usually we look at things where somebody's 65 or younger is something potentially have been more of a familial kind of dementia or memory loss, if in fact that person has that. But let's talk a little bit more about dementia in general and some of those signs and the early warning signs and things that we can do. Well, we could talk about preventing it too. But so often, I think what happens also is there are reversible dementias, or you go to a primary physician and they choose to give you a particular medication and say, let's see how you do. And I think it's really, really important to get a really good, solid diagnosis early on for a few reasons. Sometimes there are things that are reversible. For instance, vitamin deficiencies can cause what looks to be memory loss. We have infections that look to be some kind of memory loss, medication interactions. We can also have depression that appears to be memory loss. And so it's really important to eliminate all of those things and make sure that we can really take a deep dive and understand. So we could go on and on, actually. How about you? Do you have any questions in regards to what we were just talking about?
So what is the score, this 18? Like, what is
good question,
a good score? Is that a bad score? What is a good score?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different tools that we use. One is called a MoCA. It stands for Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And the other one is an MMSE, a mini mental status exam. And both have this range of 0 to 30. And so I don't know which test was given. Usually the MoCA gives us a better indicator of our executive functioning. And that's where we start to see some things go wrong, like scheduling, just being able to execute normal things like food, ordering food or purchasing food, putting things in order, maybe forgetting several things where we could remember several things in a row and not being able to remember that. So kind of really more early days, not being able to balance a checkbook, manager remember that we had paid a bill earlier and we're repaying it. So things that way. The MMSE has been around a lot longer and is probably a little more broad, and I don't want to say not as dependable, but I think I think the MOCA can kind of dig in a little better these days. But that said, a score that is between 27 and 30 is completely normal. And then if you look at 0, then obviously somebody's extremely impaired and not able to answer questions or can't respond well to a question. We also look at somebody's level of education, because typically they're going to score higher on any kind of a test anyway. So that varies into when we're testing someone.
Sure.
And we also have to think about vision loss and hearing loss when we're doing these tests, and language, difference in language. So depending on what somebody's background or primary language is, or if they have a severe hearing deficit or vision issue, we need to also take those things into account as far as how that might skew the test. But an 18 shows some pretty advancing memory loss and probably some moderate loss in regards to mild to severe. So that's something that's very concerning and definitely needs to get some additional support and testing. You know, the other thing I think is kind of interesting is people are really nervous. They're scared to get tested because it's the fear of the unknown. Let's like avoid it so we don't, you know, if I don't know, then I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But I see people's anxiety levels really rise when we kind of sit back and decide that we're not going to address it. And I think it's really important to make sure that we know what's going on. There's several reasons, because early diagnosis also helps to really focus on what we need to achieve before there's a bigger problem. Like we have conservatorships because people don't put their estate plan documents together. And this is the perfect time to make sure that you have all your affairs in order and that you are discussing the issues with your family or your friends, your support team. And quite frankly, all the research goes back to saying if you are diagnosed earlier on, not necessarily young, but earlier on, you adjust better to your diagnosis so that the depression, the anxieties, those types of things can really be alleviated a little differently than if we sit there and wonder and hang on. So that's always an interesting challenge. But I think the most important thing to realize is, or to know is, let's see if this is a permanent situation or something that can be reversed. There are things like encephalopathy, where we have some like little fluid in the brain, and that can appear to be dementia sometimes too, and it's a pretty easy fix. So with ruling out a lot of the issues, then we know what we're really dealing with too. And for instance, thiamine. I have a client who used to drink a lot, and his thiamine level is very low. And it won't change. It won't get him back to where his memory was prior to his thiamine loss, but it won't progress anymore either with the balance. Right. So those are also things that are really important to look at. We have all kinds of vitamin deficiencies that can appear to be a problem. But I think the other ones can be medication interactions too. I've had other clients who could barely walk and thought that they were losing their memory severely. And we sat down with the pharmacist and her primary doctor and went through all of her medication, took her off of almost everything except for the essentials. She was on 27 medications. And so we took her down to, the doctors took her down to the bare bones, and the dizziness went away. The fuzziness went away, and they were going to continue treating her with more medication. So we were able to back off and really treat her successfully and know that she did not have memory loss. So that was a fantastic outcome. We also have situations where let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other things where um, it looks like we have dementia, but we don't. Hydrocephalus is a very interesting situation. You do need to have brain scans.
I think we
Um,
talked before about like UTIs too. Like that could cause a lot of
yes,
confusion.
UTIs,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So my
Even
mom went through
somebody,
that.
yeah, even
Yeah.
somebody um, with dementia can have a really sudden decline. It's like, what's going on?
Mhm.
The infection of the body is a real significant thing that can really change your memory. In fact, I think it was on Succession. The if you're watching one of the shows on HBO Max, they have a show called Succession, and
Right.
the father is older and he's losing his mind, and so the kids are all going to take over and they step in, try to take over dad's business, huge business, and they
Mhm.
find out he just has a UTI. Which I
Nice.
thought was pretty funny, actually. They put that in a segment, but it's true. It does happen.
Right.
And then you want to really make sure that you're getting really good attention from the right kinds of physicians too. So
I was just thinking it too, that this also assumes that people are diligent in going to their doctor and following up with their doctors, and not everybody, like my parents, my mom, when we still had her, she was not someone that would just go to the doctor because, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that. Let me go to the doctor and get it checked out. She was the person that would feel a certain way and think, well, it's going to pass and I'll just ride it out.
right,
So,
exactly. My toothache will go away. The
uh-huh.
nerve will eventually be dead, but
Right, right. Yeah.
uh,
So you're not getting that and like that feedback, that
right.
diagnosis necessarily, or maybe not as soon as you should. So
And
how do you?
go to a specialist. Don't go just back to your primary doctor and just accept what it might be. I think the other thing that's important is what kind of dementia do you have potentially? Is it dementia at all? And if it
Mhm.
is, what kind is it? Because they all need to be treated a little bit differently.
Right.
And so sometimes medications that you might take for Alzheimer's, when you in reality have something like Lewy body, could really wreak havoc on you
Mhm.
and create lots of disturbances in your behavior and so forth. So and sometimes that's how you find out too. But it's really important to go and get the right diagnosis. We have ADRCs through the Health Institute, National Institute of Health. We have a variety of ADRCs. And while they're focused on Alzheimer's, so let me also just mention too that what is dementia? Or somebody last night was talking about how their mom had Alzheimer's disease, but later in life she wound up having dementia. But she didn't have it early on. I was like, she always had dementia. So dementia is kind of a blanket term like cancer, and then you have specific types of cancer. So
Right.
dementia is a blanket term to say somebody has memory loss, and then we have things like vascular dementia, Lewy body disease, we have Alzheimer's is one of the most common. And that's how we find out how to better support the individual with medication
Right.
or certain treatments, because sometimes we have issues like with the Lewy body, we have more in regards of hallucinations and almost like Parkinsonian types of behaviors too, with you can see somebody who's very rigid or just kind of collapse while they're standing there, or their knees just kind of give out. A little different than Alzheimer's. So the treatments are different, and the way we need to address the issue is different too.
Yeah,
So
we had a friend who they thought he had Parkinson's, and they were treating him for Parkinson's, but he wasn't responding to the treatment or the treatments. They were trying multiple things, and they finally diagnosed him correctly, and it wasn't Parkinson's. It was a disease that was very similar to that. Like the symptoms were very similar.
mhm.
By the time they figured that out, like a year or so had gone by, and so that disease had progressed that whole time. So
Right,
tough.
right. So there are neurologists that you can go to be
Excuse me.
go through a panel of tests and so forth. And I highly recommend that. Go to a neurologist if you do have something like Parkinson's. A doctor a neurologist who specializes in movement disorders is also very important. There are doctors that specialize in epilepsy and all kinds of different things, neuromuscular diseases. Really important to take a look at those very specific issues to really drill down and get the right support. But the ADRCs are research centers throughout the country. We're pretty
Explain
fortunate.
what that is, please.
So it's Alzheimer's Disease Research Center.
Okay.
And so those are associated with in California at least, they're associated with some of our California university medical centers.
Okay.
And like USC is really the one closest the only one I think in Los Angeles right now. And they have them in Davis, San Francisco. I would think they have one in San Diego as well. And I thought they had one at UCLA, but when I just checked it before we went on, I only saw USC. But we're pretty fortunate here in California to have several. And so that's another opportunity to go and have further, deeper research. They do take Medicare. So that's certainly something that you could participate in. The other thing we have in Pasadena is a real gem. It's called HMRI, Huntington Medical Research Institute. Mm-hmm. And they're actually doing a lot of pre-testing. They want really well people to come and do some of the similar tests that we would do for an individual potentially or who does have dementia. They're studying spinal fluid and doing the MRIs, CTs. Not sure if they do PET scans or not, but they do a series of tests, early days, you and I healthy, to see what are we seeing really early on that might be similar so that we can actually stop that. Mm-hmm. And, can we prevent that kind of thing earlier before we even see signs? And, then they absolutely see people who are concerned about their memory, and right. They're a wonderful staff, fantastic organization. Highly recommend HMRI if that's something that you are close to, and getting to Pasadena for some additional testing too. Very, very supportive group.
Right.
So I think we've talked enough. I think we have a little birthday today, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll talk about our birthday, and we have Melinda on too, so we're going to talk with Melinda. So will you come on and mention our day in sports a little later?
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good.
We'll go
ahead. All right. Sounds great. And let me see. We're going to have our little birthday celebration here. So let's go ahead and we'll celebrate our birthday. Well, it's not the best picture, but we have a longtime baseball fan who has her birthday, and her name's Jean Moyer. She loves the Orioles, and so Alex Glaze put this story together in Baltimore, and she said, it's my birthday, so it made sense that maybe they planned something to do over at the stadium, and in near record heat there. It was actually a couple of weeks ago when she celebrated her birthday. She was amazed to be at this amazing ballpark, and she said that this is just the best place to be. And she was joking to somebody a few weeks ago and said it would be fun to do, and here she is. She brought her son and her 2 granddaughters, and she said, I just love baseball. I love things like this. I love fun things. So you could tell that she was a very fun, positive person, and she had a great time on her birthday. The Orioles, some of the players signed souvenirs and things for her, and she felt like she had the perfect day at the park. And she said, in closing, she said, I won't be able to sleep tonight. So I thought that was very sweet also. So let's go on, and we're going to talk to Melinda and see what kind of special information she has for us today. So let's see.
Good
Morning.
morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. So, what kind of great information do you have for us today?
So I was going to talk a little bit about the importance of muscle. There was a client who came in recently who was essentially very surprised and shocked to find through having our consultation at the strength shop that muscle doesn't just come down to how strong do I feel and can I participate in my daily activities feeling like I'm capable of doing them in that way. And so there's a lot of benefits to increasing the amount of muscle we have on our body that doesn't come down to how strong we feel. One of the benefits is that it promotes brain health, and there's a link between the health of our mitochondria in our cells and the development of Alzheimer's disease. And the mitochondria in our cells are what's responsible for producing ATP, which is muscle energy, which is how we produce movement. So mitochondria and building muscle is being linked to being preventative in some ways of developing Alzheimer's or other, forms of dementia. They don't really understand how yet or what the role is in strength training of those things. They just see a correlation between loss of muscle mass in particular and the decline in the health of the mitochondria when it comes to Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So there's a huge benefit there that doesn't really come down to, oh, do I feel stronger to, lift the bags of groceries or the suitcases on my trip or walking this flight of stairs. Um, Other benefits of increasing muscle are increasing our resistance to injury. So muscle functions by helping us move our body through space. We contract our muscle and it helps to move our skeleton. But it's also protection. So
Yeah.
the muscle protects the skeleton, protects the internal organs.
Organs.
If there's impact or injury to the body, muscle can absorb that impact and injury and protect the skeleton and the internal organs underneath. And muscle can repair itself from many injuries. We also have muscles stabilizing our joints and bones. So when the muscles, for instance, that support the knee joint begin to atrophy, when we begin to that decline of muscle mass, that's natural part of, a natural part of the aging process, those joints are no longer properly supported. So when we can increase muscle mass or maintain our muscle mass and keep those joints properly supported, that's when they function correctly. Same thing with the skeleton as a whole. A lot of people experience back pain as they age, and that's the loss of muscle mass that's supporting the skeleton and helping us hold our spine in the correct position.
Sarcopenia.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that word. I don't know.
I know it's a cool word, but not a great
if you
thing
have,
to have happen to your body.
Or why we shrink too. And
Yeah.
we see natural progression too, where you used to be 6 foot, now you're, I don't know, 5'11" over time. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. So as we lose muscle, if we're not doing anything to keep that muscle, then it affects our posture, it affects our balance. Obviously, it affects the function of our joints and how we hold our body up. It affects our metabolism. Muscle is
off our vertebrae and our back.
Yeah. So being able to hold the spine in the proper position means that we're relieving the pressure on the discs in between the vertebrae. So sometimes clients will come into the strength shop and they'll have a herniated disc or a slip disc, some type of spinal injury. And the pain that they experience can be in many times completely diminished just by strengthening the muscles that support the spine so that those muscles are holding the spine in a way that isn't exacerbating that injury. So strength training won't repair the herniated disc, but it'll take the pressure off of it. And sometimes that's enough to alleviate the pain that the person is experiencing. Increasing metabolism. Muscle is the source of our metabolism. So the more muscle we have on our body, the easier it is to maintain our weight or to lose weight if that's something that we're trying to do. And muscle is directly related to the health of our cardiovascular system. So when we exercise and the muscles are requiring oxygen, when we produce any type of movement, the main source of creating ATP, which is muscle energy, is oxygen. So as we're breathing that oxygen, our heart and lungs are pumping that oxygen or delivering that oxygen to the working muscles. And
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And there are lots of studies coming out. Maybe this is a different show, actually, but quickly, if we're needing oxygen and we're wearing masks.
Yeah. You mean for COVID?
Right, during COVID.
Yeah. The thing that drove me a little crazy with our experience at the strength shop with COVID is that while our clients were exercising, it was mandatory for us to require masks at a certain period of time, and that was not ideal. And it drove me a little crazy because we were, especially during COVID times, like our normal capacity at the strength shop is no more than 2 people working out at a time. And we try to limit it to 1 as much as we can if it's not a high volume hour. But during the COVID times, we were definitely limiting it to 1 person at a time to try to protect everybody from spreading COVID. But yeah, requiring masks, I was really
well,
not
it'll be very interesting, and I think you can actually take the information, and we'll talk about this offline. But
yeah,
I do think you could take the information because you take notes so impeccably on each session that you have, and I would imagine it'll be interesting to see how much people were able to increase with masks on versus masks off.
it's definitely something that we noticed.
Yeah.
You reach muscle failure a lot sooner when you don't have the oxygen getting to the muscles. So there obviously I owned the studio. So when I did my own workout during COVID, I wasn't wearing a mask. I was just,
Right.
But there were a couple of times throughout that period where someone came in and asked a question and I demonstrated something on the machine and I had to wear a mask while I was demonstrating. And it was very, very difficult. It was very, very difficult for me to work to the same level of intensity that I was used to working in order to show somebody with a mask on. It definitely made a difference.
Interesting.
It wasn't, yeah, it definitely affected the times that we saw. There's no doubt about that. The oxygen is very, very important to fueling the muscles. And if we can't get, if your muscles can't get the oxygen, they resort to their fight or flight way of producing muscle energy, which is using glucose that's stored in the muscles for emergency purposes. And this is one of the things that makes the workout at the strength shop so special, is that we're working to this level of momentary muscular failure. So not only are we working with the metabolic pathway of using oxygen to create ATP to produce that muscle energy, but when we're no longer able to supply the muscles with the oxygen that we're breathing because we're working without allowing those muscles to take a rest and allowing them the time to assimilate that oxygen, we go into this fight or flight glycogen metabolic pathway.
Yeah.
And when you deplete the glycogen in your muscles, your body has to replenish that by taking glucose from the bloodstream, converting it into glycogen, storing it back into the muscles for the next emergency. And in doing that, it makes your cells more insulin sensitive. It's preventing or reversing diabetes and preventing other cardiovascular diseases like heart disease.
Yeah.
So
Very dangerous.
there's just benefits that
Which is maybe that's why we've seen more heart attacks and so forth too. I mean, people talk about that might, potentially being the vaccine, but I wonder if it's as simple as the lack of oxygen during workout. So we'll take that another time, but let's go ahead and bring Steve back on.
It could be. We're definitely coming out of COVID, even, that COVID period with quarantines and just the fact that when people were at home, They weren't
Mhm.
as active as they normally were. So
Right.
I think that collectively we're coming out of a period of time where we weren't very active and people aren't as healthy as they were. The number one thing that we're hearing when people come into the strength shop in 2023 is, I haven't done anything since before COVID, and I feel a huge shift in my health, meaning they feel a lot weaker. They feel like they, aren't capable of doing the things that they used to do in their daily lives, and they're realizing that it's a major problem, and that's why they're coming in to see us. And so I do think that we're all making the shift, coming out of a period of time that was not healthy for us, for a
Mhm.
variety of reasons.
Oh, absolutely. Socially, I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
things, and we really could do a series of investigations on that. One way or the other, it could be debated, but still, I think, as professionals, we see these particular things, and the changes were so rapid, and so surprising in younger people too. So,
Yeah.
Steve,
To Melinda's point too,
yeah,
I remember thinking when we were working from home, I'd have all this free time, right? I wasn't going to be commuting and
right,
to the
right.
gym, get to the
Do
gym
all
more
those
often. And then the gym shut down. And then I was like, well, I live right by the San Gabriel Mountains. We could go on hikes. And then it closed hiking trails.
Yeah,
Then,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Beach, everything.
right. Yeah, the Rose Bowl. I was like, I'll go down to the
Yeah.
Rose Bowl. They had officers stationed outside the Rose Bowl to stop people from walking outside, right, of the Rose Bowl.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. That was really disappointing to me when there was a short period of time where people were discouraged from even going outside. And
mhm.
And I
yeah,
feel terrible for the people who I see in their car by themselves with a mask on, and maybe they had somebody else they were protecting and just dropped off. I'll leave
Mhm.
it at that. But I think it's terrible. I think it's anyway. That's my personal opinion, but I think it's terrible watching these little children walk around with their masks on still, and I think it's terrible seeing people isolate by themselves outside in nature or in their car by themselves with a mask on still.
Right.
So
Well, and as a member of the strength shop, I could tell you from my personal experience, I couldn't wait to be able to work out without a mask, and it was a huge difference.
Yeah.
yeah, and I was a gym rat, so I would go to the gym, and when those closed, I was so thankful the strength shop was around. So actually, you know what? Why don't you say how to get a hold of you? Because you have a couple shops.
Oh, yeah. So we're in Pasadena and in Echo Park, and you can get a hold of us by calling or texting 626-999-4850.
Sounds great. And I actually have a couple of my clients that I'll be sending over to you because they realize how important strength training is and how that will support their longevity and their well-being. So
Yeah, I think that that's really what I wanted for this show in particular, is to just impress upon that it's not just about strength and feeling stronger and being stronger. There's so much muscle functions and such a bigger role in our health.
Mhm.
And that's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, the bigger role of muscle.
Mhm.
We'll do another show on that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Steve, tell us what day in sports it is today.
Sure. The year was 1967. The location was Los Angeles, and it was the first rain out at Dodger Stadium. So Dodger Stadium, the first game played there was April 10th, 1962. They played 737 consecutive games without a rain out. And in 1967, on this day, was their first rain out. In the history of Dodger Stadium, they've only had 17 rainouts total. So
Wow.
everybody who thought they were going to the Dodger game that night,
Dodger game. So
yeah.
it's Star Wars Day. If you're going to the Dodger game on May 2nd, you can see the entire About Senior Solutions and Visionary Aging team. We will be there taking up 3 rows over between first and home. And yeah, we'll be there. So come join us. And let's see, what day is it? I think it's like National Bulldog Day or something today. So let me see what day it is on the perk. And you can always call and get the perk for free. Jenny will make sure that she gets it out to you. You can call our office at 626-359-0108. 3590108. So it's National Bulldogs Are Beautiful Day. And our perk pun is a man who took in too many dogs suffered from a terrible rover dose. And then something else that I think is pretty notable is in 1857, Alexander Douglas patented the bustle. And I don't know if that's a good thing that we had him or not, but I don't know. I think he should be shamed for having the bustle. I think pretty horrible. And then tomorrow is National Earth Day. So something kind of fun and something.
Okay, what is a bustle?
A bustle is the big thing that they would put on the back of your, so in the 1800s and obviously the mid 1800s, they used to put this big like poof on the back of your rear end as part of your dress. And you were all kind of girdled in or kind of tightened in with your corset. So he didn't do the corset, but sounds like he created that little bump up on the back. I guess it's a common
we still bustle for weddings.
Yeah,
well, when a woman has a really long dress and she goes to a reception, they bustle, they pin it up and create a little bustle, and then she can dance at her reception.
Well, I guess it's kind of the equivalent of today's like Kardashian rear ends.
Yeah,
these girls are doing their little butt implants. So there you go.
This has got to go out of style soon. With all sorts of weird plastic stuff in our bodies.
Oh, that's terrible. But I have to say that is that my rear end is saved my little saved my whole body. My little fanny saved my whole body when I fell off a diving board when I was like 6 years old onto the cement.
Wow.
That little fundi bounced me off, and I'm sure that I was okay. So I appreciate having a well-formed derriere.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. Any great plans? I'm doing nothing because in the next couple of weeks I'll be doing all kinds of things. So
my stepson's birthday is on Tuesday, so we're going to be celebrating with some cake, and yeah, this weekend's going to be fun.
Happy birthday.
Well, he'll be 12.
Yeah. Nice. Wonderful.
I'm looking forward to some Earth Day events tomorrow. So.
Oh, great. Sounds good. All right. Well, I think it's time to take off, and let me see if I can find our little thing that says goodbye. So, all right, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.